This is a meeting of the Township Committee, June 6, 2016. The notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice of this meeting was properly given by transmission to the Star Ledger, the Independent, and the Two Red Times, and by posting at the Middletown Township Municipal Building and filing with the Township Clerk on January 7, 2016. Committeeman South.
Here.
Committeewoman Murray. Here. Committeeman Sedembrino.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Fury.
Here.
Mayor Sharpler.
Here.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to honor the troops serving worldwide, defending our constitutions, freedoms, and way of life. Thank you. The first item on tonight's agenda, we have a public hearing of proposed ordinance 2016-3168, an ordinance amending Chapter 16, Planning and Development Regulations for the PD zone.
Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to ordinance number 2016-3168? Seeing no members of the public come forward, move to close the public portion and move for adoption.
Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeewoman Murray.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedembrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fury.
Yes.
Mayor Sharpler.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt this ordinance on second and final reading. The next item, we have introduction of proposed ordinance 2016-3168. I'm sorry, I'm repeating. 3169, ordinance amending Chapter 202 of the Code of the Township of Middletown, establishing new licensing requirements for dealers in precious metals, gems, and other secondhand goods, and requiring participation in uniform electronic reporting system.
Move for introduction.
Second.
Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeewoman Murray.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedembrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fury.
Yes.
Mayor Sharpler.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on first reading with a public hearing to be held June 20th, 2016. Our next item for introduction, we have ordinance 2016-3170, ordinance amending section 230-11 of the Code of the Township of Middletown, expanding the township's garbage district to cover remainder of Bamm Hollow Estates.
Is the whole development going to be in the garbage district? And are we then going to have to do this again next year when they say they don't want to be in the garbage district because of the assessed values?
The whole development would be in.
We'll be in it.
Right now, only half of the line goes through the middle.
So what is the why is it the remainder? Were they not built yet?
They weren't, no,
They
it's
weren't
just where the
complete.
line, it's just where the line happened to
The
live.
garbage district line went through the middle of the development, basically.
And it's already
We're
become a
going to
problem.
wind up undoing this here, so go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry, no questions.
Move for introduction.
Second.
Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeewoman Murray.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedembrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fury.
Sure.
Mayor Sharpler.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on first reading with a public hearing to be held June 20th, 2016. Our next ordinance for introduction, ordinance 2016-3171, refunding bond ordinance providing for the refunding of certain general obligation bonds of the Township of Middletown, New Jersey, appropriating $3 million, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $3 million in bonds or notes of the township for financing the cost thereof.
Move for introduction.
Second.
Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeewoman Murray.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedembrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fury.
Yes.
Mayor Sharpler.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on first reading with a public hearing to be held June 20th, 2016. At this time, I'd like to ask the Township Committee to consider adopting the consent agenda, which would include resolutions 16-150 through 16-160, including volunteer firefighter applications.
Can I ask that we remove 16-150 150 for separate votes, so it starts from 16,151.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so the consent agenda will include 16-151 through 16-160, including the firefighter applications.
Move for adoption.
Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeewoman Murray. Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
This is for 150 or?
This is for the consent.
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt consent agenda. This time we have resolution 16-150, a resolution authorizing fireworks display at Beacon Hill Country Club.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Move it.
Boy, you really want those fireworks. Move for introduction. Move for adoption, I'm sorry. God, now you can-
Okay. Do you second it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeewoman Murray. Abstain. Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
Abstain.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass is adopt resolution 16-151. Abstentions are noted.
150.
150. 16-150. Yes. Okay. For our meeting on June 20th, we have certificates of appreciation, proclamations, approval of minutes, public hearing of proposed ordinances, introduction of proposed ordinances, a consent agenda with resolutions, minimum raffle applications, and volunteer firefighter applications. For discussion items for June 6th tonight, we have a proposed substantial amendment to the fiscal year 2015 one-year action plan component of the 2015-2019 consolidation plan, part of the Middletown CDBG program.
There was a memo in the packet. If anyone has any questions, answers, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, we have the multi-zone leaf collection.
Those bids were received by the purchasing agent at the end of last month. And they're basically in line with what we had last year. So they're being reviewed now in our office.
Is there anybody new? who bid
It's just
on
the
this?
same contractor. One contractor submitted a bid.
Bennett? Yeah. It's any consolation, we have a lot of compliments.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they did a very
You
good
do
job
a
very
last
well,
year.
too.
Very nice job.
Yeah.
Okay, next item, 6 fuel, gasoline, compressed natural gas, 1-ton heavy-duty pickup trucks, bid date 6/14/16.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's on us.
Police uniforms for new hires.
Just coming up to bid for
Okay.
new uniforms.
A resolution accepting donation from retired Police Chief Joseph McCarthy for Port Monmouth Antique Post Office.
So this is in your packet. There was a piece of, essentially furniture, which is from the original post office in Port Monmouth. That there was a little bit of an issue about who it belonged to and where it was supposed to go. It was kept at what used to be the Port Monmouth Library, which is now the Health Department. And it was a little unclear who it belonged to. Heidi and I met with Mr. McCarthy and his sort of a family member of his, I guess, and kind of researched some stuff, and it's clearly belonged to him, but he wanted to donate it to the township. He wanted it to make sure it wasn't just going to go in a basement somewhere, so.
He knows us pretty well.
Yeah. What is it? It's an old mail.
It's a post office.
It's technically called a post office, but it's a piece of furniture with the old mail slots, you know.
Middletown?
Yeah.
Port Monmouth.
Port Monmouth. Yeah. It's really pretty neat. It's actually a beautiful piece of furniture if you really look at it. So we're actually going to display it out here where we have our other historic stuff. And they also gave us a lot of really interesting photographs.
Tony, it's there now, right?
Yes, it's in
Because
the
I think I know
now.
the exact.
It's in the health department now,
I
yeah.
know it. I
Yeah.
know exactly what it is.
Stand behind it.
You can, actually. You
I think I
could.
attached a photo to your.
You could. And they gave us a little brief history of the, you know, how its journey, I guess, if you will. 1930s, I think.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, the last time it was used, I think,
Oh,
was like
yeah,
1930.
no, the last time it was used was in 1979 at the Spy House.
Oh, the Spy
For
House,
one
yeah.
day.
They used it for one day.
Yeah, and they posted all the mail out of the Spy House.
And they actually have a piece of something that shows the postmark
Yeah.
from the Spy House. It's only ever, literally, only at the post office for one day.
One day.
Sort of ceremonial.
It was kind of neat, though. It was very interesting.
So yeah, we'll have it out here pretty soon. And we just wanted to create a record that he actually did donate it to the township.
Well, thank you very much. It was nice.
We have the appointments for boards and commissions.
I don't remember seeing applications for these, so.
What's the
Someone
Navigate
told me
River
that-
Municipalities
yeah, what this
Committee? What
is.
is that?
That's actually,
It's like a regional committee of people from environmental commissions from various towns, just to talk about kind of coastal issues, watershed issues for the Navigate River.
Which committee is that? Is that a county? What is that?
I think it was set up by the towns in the Navigate River corridor, so the same towns that belong to Navigate, the two rivers,
Okay.
river mayors.
we did a resolution establishing it with them back, I don't know the year, but it was quite a long time ago. They asked for a liaison from the town, because we're on the
He'd be the
river.
good one.
I think it was when the stormwater management rules were going into effect.
Yeah, it might be longer than that.
Yeah, that was the 90s.
Did we receive a memo asking for a recreation advisory board member to be placed? Because if we did, I may have missed it. Just see that we're putting someone on now. I don't remember seeing the memo asking to appoint someone and giving names. Was
I
there-
didn't see one.
I mean, I just
Janet
want-
has sent them something, and
To the committee?
I mean,
I just like some, I don't know if you guys.
if you want, I get background on it.
I've got background.
No, I will get background on it. I mean,
Would be nice
Yeah.
prior to the meeting before I take a vote.
sure.
Like, did someone come off and resign?
There was
Opening?
some, there were
There's some vacancies,
vacancies on
they
it
had
from
some
the
quorum
beginning of the year.
problems.
Dr. Rogers, who's on other boards for us, and questions.
And then we have the memorial bench for the Middletown Library.
Yeah, I guess this was a request from the library, and you know that they have a couple of other items in there outside in the perimeter that are named in memory of people. They just want to add a bench for Mr. Refinance. And we haven't, the township requires now that all those get approved by the township committee before they're done on any municipal facility.
Is there any background on Mr. Morales was?
Yeah.
What his contributions to the library?
I believe they did a letter. I'll get that to you. I thought maybe it had already gone to you guys. But I'll get you something before the next meeting, because we'll have it on for a resolution at the next meeting, and I'll make sure you get something.
It's coming to us because we have a facility.
Right, and we started a requirement a couple of years ago. I don't know him personally. I think he's just a longtime friend of the library.
Is the bench being donated by the family, or is there a bench
believe
that's
it's
just
his wife.
going to be?
His wife, I believe, now.
So there's not a bench there now?
Right.
I was the one that told the library board, reminded them you had to come to
Yeah,
you
we know,
guys.
we know.
Jim, you can tell us, it was your idea?
No, it wasn't my idea. But they were preparing to talk about it and vote on it, and I said, well, I think there's a requirement now that the town, oh, yeah, that's right.
Is this your uncle?
No, it's not my uncle.
We're keeping them in line, Jim. All right?
We have township committee comments.
Just briefly, I'll save my comments for our regular meeting, but went to the Memorial Day Parade, only one comment in there, but it was just a phenomenal day, aside from the expected torrential downpour. heavens shone on us, and it was I say it every year, one of the greatest turnouts I've ever seen,
Mhm.
I can't remember. And we actually got the route right this year.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't us who got it wrong.
I'm sorry, you're right, yes.
The lead.
We went the right
It was
way.
the Animal House band that.
That's
that
right,
wrote
band.
it.
Go ahead, sorry.
That's okay. Consider me.
Mayor, I will hold my comments for the next meeting.
Okay. Murray.
Yes,
What's
Mayor,
your
I
pleasure?
am going to hold my comments as well until the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm just going to echo my colleagues' comments to thank the American Legion, the VFW, and everyone, the police, all EMS, fire, and everyone, schools, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, everybody who participated in the Memorial Day Parade. And we definitely got lucky with the weather, and we had a great turnout. It's great to see Congressman Smith attend the parade, someone who does stuff for the veterans. Was eager to join us this year, so thank you.
Okay, yeah, and I'll just, pile on to that Memorial Day Parade. 2 hours before step-off, we were talking about how we were going to get the word out that we have to cancel it. And miraculously, the skies cleared and we were able to get it in. It was fantastic. And the Grand Marshal was a World War II vet. He was 91 years old and sharp as a tack, incredible. And it really was, it gives you goosebumps to be around these, the greatest generation as they enter the twilight, and it really was something. He was telling me about his service in Scotland and Europe, and just recalled every detail. It was amazing, really a great thing to be, really a great event to be a part of. As Mr. Massell said, the weather didn't faze anybody. The kids were out there waving the flags like there was no tomorrow, so it was great. So with that, I'm going to withhold the rest of my many comments for the regular meeting. Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to speak? And before we start the public comment, I just want to remind everybody, please keep your comments to 5 minutes to allow everybody else to speak, and give us your name and address, okay? All right, what's your pleasure? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Don Watson, 1 Collinson Drive. I was just curious about the recycling center. I was wondering, are we profitable running that recycling center?
Are we profitable?
Yeah?
Well, Ted, I'll let you answer that, but it's not a for-profit
Yeah,
arm.
I'm not sure if our revenue,
We bring in more than what we pay out for the employees though, correct?
yeah, and that's a dynamic thing. It changes from year to year. I mean, currently, a lot of the values have gone down, so we really haven't looked at, analyzing that. Yeah, and it's a mandatory operation, so we haven't really looked at whether or not we are actually making a profit, so to speak. But we do, some of the materials do have a lot of value, and some have no value.
Mhm.
So,
I was just curious. I was over there the other day and they're starting to ID people to see whether they're coming from out of town. And I was wondering, maybe that was because that, when other people bring in their stuff to our recycling center, that it would, cost us more money because of that.
There's some items that cost
Yes.
us
Right.
to take, and we don't want to be subsidizing other municipalities.
For sure.
But at the same token, if compliance rose for materials that we do make a profit on, that would certainly help the bottom line.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
thinking.
we've got more residents to comply with the rules and recycle, especially fiber products, I think, are the most valuable if we talk about recyclables in terms of
Paper and
value.
cardboard.
And you also have to look at the cost in relation to the savings in tipping fees. Even if things are dumped at the recycling center that we don't generate revenue from per se, it's that much less being dumped at the garbage dump where we pay tipping fees. So
Right.
you'd have to subtract that tonnage out too. So it's hard to say whether it's profitable or not. It may not be profitable, but it's something we're required to do. But the ID thing was changed recently because we had an issue that might have generated a lot of out-of-town stuff being dumped there, and we're not going to pay for that.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't expect that.
Okay.
And I was wondering if, like contractors, landscapers and stuff, they're allowed to bring residents, like leaves and branches and stuff into...
they can bring brush in, but they're charged for it.
Oh, they are? Okay. And that leads me to another point. my dog was walking me around the neighborhood today, and I noticed that, you know, the brush was finally picked up in my neighborhood, and I was wondering if the street sweeper was gonna come by, because now there's like big piles of debris left in the street.
We normally do send them out. Once the brush collection is done, we'll send sweepers out.
Yeah? I'd like to see that, because I haven't had a street sweeper down my neighborhood in 3 or 4 years.
We don't do every road. I mean, we have 325
I know.
miles of road, so we don't really go through. But if you have a request for it in particular, or something is, you know, particularly messy there, you can call the office and send somebody over while we're in that area.
Yeah, it's like the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, okay. All
Really.
right, I'll write it down.
Great, thank you, Ted.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Betts, 99 Bamm Hollow Road. I have a question. When are we going to resurface Bamm Hollow Road? It's gotten to a point now where it's probably dangerous.
I think it's July 1st, right?
So it is happening?
After the schools let out, after schools are let out, we haven't scheduled it yet, but it'll be done.
It will be done before the winter.
Yes.
That's a good answer. My second question is with respect to brush, whether that's brush or leaves. Some people in the town don't understand the distinction. And even though you tell them what's going to be picked up when and threaten them with fines, do we ever fine anybody for violating?
You know, the problem with fining people for not shoveling their sidewalk or that sort of thing, you could fine them $1 million before the judge and he can toss it out. So it's not always a deterrent unless the fine is followed through.
To me, it's useless to have a fine if you're not going to apply it.
But that's not necessarily correct, because years ago, prior to 2011, before we had taken and increased the fine or penalties for brush and leaf compliance, what would happen is that people would miss the deadline and just leave it out there. So yes, there still are instances where that does happen, but what happens now is a process that comes through where a letter is sent out telling the person that, you know, they have 7 days, was it 7 days, Ted, to remove the materials? And if they don't, then DPW will ultimately come and pick it up, and then a fine will be imposed. Now, the issue is most of the time they will pick it up within 7 days or call a landscaper, because the fine is higher than doing it from a private. So it has made a big impact on people actually cleaning and not leaving it there for 4 or 5 months till the next collection. Sometimes some people put it on the side where you can't get to it, so it's
Well, they put it out the day after it's collected and then hope somebody's going to come by.
But again, if they don't...
As long as they're being fined, I'm fine with it.
Well, it's not they're being sent a letter that a fine will happen so that the DPW winds up having to come on Saturdays or Sundays, and you have to pay overtime, and they have to collect it at that time because they have to go do their regular normal job. So they do, it has been relatively effective. I mean, Ted, you can probably...
Yeah, probably 95% of the time that people get the letter and they don't want to pay, so they get it removed within the week. You know, we'll get a call that it's, you know, I'm not going to be here this weekend, well, you know, you might give them a couple extra days, but they do, 95% of the time, they get rid of it themselves.
But most of the time, you have to actually call it, because these guys only go past.
Right.
The police won't really report it unless it's in the major street or providing a traffic block. And so if it gets reported is how, it's kind of neighborhood compliance.
Neighbors report it too.
I was going to say, if the town people report it,
They do,
It's
but
a
there's
blight.
320 miles of roads, so sometimes those back roads, it's best the neighbors just say, hey, there's brush on the street, you call up anonymously.
That's where most of it comes from, neighbors calling.
It's complaint driven mostly, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak? Steve? Oh, Leo, I have a quick hook. Man, that was close.
Leo Christophe, River Plaza, Middletown. I'm wondering if you'll have a cause to have a new supplemental debt statement in light of the refinancing, restructuring, refunding, $3 million for $3 million. I assume you're getting a lower interest rate. It's just my common sense figuring whether it's right or wrong. And you're putting out bids for 6 one-ton trucks. I suspect you're going to be bonding for that. And would that be included in by law, a future supplemental debt statement, which is not a debt service statement?
That was previously bonded, prior year, that's a prior year bond. In 2014, I believe that was bonded.
But you're restructuring that bond. So you're
That's
gonna
talking
get-
about the trucks.
Trucks specifically.
So you will not, so I'm drawing the conclusion, no, you will not have to include the money of the cost of those 6 vehicles
It's already
in
included.
It's already
a
there.
future supplemental debt statement?
No, that was already done when the bond ordinance was done back in 2014.
Oh, it's already been done.
Right.
And so what supplemental debt statement would I, if I got to an Oprah, where would I make a request? Well, where could I see that?
Whichever bond ordinance was in, when it was introduced, there would have been a supplemental debt statement that went along with that.
You know what year that is? You could
I
look it
believe
up
that was
for me if I wanted to know.
I think it was 2014. I believe.
2014. And what about your $3 million that's going to,
That's
it's
a
like
new
the thing is gonna,
supplemental.
the principle's gonna remain the same. It looks like the interest, the implications of this, you're gonna get a lower interest, is that true?
Mhm.
And so there will be a change, that will cause a change in the supplemental debt statement as well as the debt service statement.
Well, the supplemental debt statement is the change to the debt statement.
Yeah, but I don't see it's hard to get debt service statements from governments. You can get, we hear the word debt, 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 I hear it all the time, but I really what I want to hear is debt service, that's the principal, this is the interest in cash or dollar amounts. I care less about percentage, it doesn't help me. It's not user friendly if you just give me the coupon.
Well, we've had many conversations over the phone about that, and I've told you in the audit where you can see the principal and the interest laid out in dollars.
Well, if I ask for the annual audit, yes. That's, that's thick and could be costly, $7.
Just ask for those pages.
Right, it's just a few pages.
You have to get the whole thing.
It's a few
The annual
pages.
audit, if you ask for note 8, maybe from that whole audit, it might be a few pages, that's true. In fact, I think you gave me note 8 on that, so I did see it. Could I just throw out one big number that I got recently related to debt and debt service? It took me weeks to get to the E equals MC square, this kind of genius conclusions. I got the genius conclusion here is I have the Township debt service, 72 million. I have the Board of Ed debt service, it's 95 million. And I just recently got, with updated information, but not on principal, not on the interest, I got for the county $578 million. I have a total of the debt service of citizens in Middletown from its committee government, its Board of Ed, and the freeholders of $747,094,222, and that excludes interest on about $8 million at the county level. So that's a whopping sum, 74 million. And so what I'm after is, you guys do a good job of it, but just to add the principle, surface the principle that we always want to reduce expenses before we increase taxes. Always want to strive for that. That's the goal, right?
That's our mantra.
But the issue, Leo, that we've discussed on multiple occasions is what makes up the $72 million in debt service for this municipality as bonded by this township government. And the vast majority of the debt service is made up of roads and road replacement. This gentleman passed about road replacement. Roads in the state of New Jersey, for some ungodly reason, cost about, what, $1.2 million per mile?
And they know why
So-
that is.
so-
It's the unions.
Right, whatever the reason is,
All right.
I'm not going to pontificate.
I'm
I
not in
agree.
the government, I'm not afraid
No,
to
I
say,
get
it's the
that.
unions, okay?
I get that, but of 375 miles the municipality has of roadway, we probably should be in debt $375 million, you could argue, because that would be the cost of the roads, and some of them in much more than others. But the vast majority of the debt service is roads and, emergency services, emergency services, equipment.
Drainage improvement project.
Drainage improvement projects, things that have a useful life of 20 years or greater. And while it would be nice, like if I were running a business, I'd want to run that in revenue and cash, right? It would make sense to not have debt. The issue with using cash to resurface roads or buy something that lasts 20 years is that you're saddling the people of today with 100% of the cost when someone moves in 5 years and uses it for the next 15 years and pays absolutely zero for it. So there is a philosophical reason why debt service is important for a municipality to have. Now, too much debt service is no good, and I think $70 million is probably as low as you could possibly get for a size of a municipality of 70,000 people with 375 miles of roadway. So we can argue the merits, but there's a philosophy behind it.
Well, one area where you could think about, and it may never happen again, but the Board of Ed and the committee government of Middletown shared the cost of Nook Swamp hard surface field, about $1.5 million. I thought sharing would be best. I thought the original intention of sharing costs between two municipalities or among 3 or more municipalities, they would split the cost so that the township would not bear the whole cost. When you share costs with the Board of Ed in Middletown, this committee of Middletown, it's all on the taxpayers in Middletown. There's no savings in that some other nearby municipality is bearing a cost for a common neighboring municipality endeavor.
Leo, we're going to have to wrap up, but do you have any other specific comments towards anything on the agenda?
Yeah, we'll never do that again if it's going, if that's, I mean, you're in charge of overseeing economic.
Leo, to be fair, while the Board of Ed's contribution for that field and that process was 25% of the total cost, they only get 25% of the usage during the school day. I mean, the vast majority of that field is used by the recreational leagues of this township and the youth of this township. The field has a 25-year useful life, if not longer. And how can you expect them to pay 50% on that? I mean, so the argument, we could, again, off the record, offline, we could talk and argue why we came up with that number, but ultimately, we share services with the Board of Ed and save hundreds of thousands of dollars in recycling, for example. So there are other things that we do with the Board of Ed that have saved a good amount of money.
Well, also keep in mind that the other savings that was the result of the Board of Ed is that they provided the land.
Right.
We didn't have to go acquire a piece of property to build the field on. They gave us, they essentially donated, if you will, to us a piece of land to build that field on. So that's a huge savings.
Okay, is there anybody else, thank you, Leo. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, seeing no further members of the public come forward, we can close the public portion and move for adjournment.
Second. Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeewoman Murray. Yes. Committeeman Sedambrino. Deputy Mayor Fiore. Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries to adjourn.